Hello and welcome! Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be watching something, the first part of a recommendation of one of my Patreons from my Doctor Who channel, who gave me the idea to watch this video that I'm very interested in watching. It is called Is German as Bad as People Say? From the channel RobWords. Wow, that's a really big channel. 800,000 people like this channel. Wow. As many of you might already know, I am German and I do know the German language. And I don't think it's awful, to be honest. I do think, though, that it is sounding harder than other languages. Like when you speak words, they sound a little bit harsher than other languages that I do know. For example, I also speak Italian, and that language sounds a lot more melodic in a way and a lot softer. But also, I have watched so many reactors reacting to the German language or even try and do the accent. And every single time they do, I don't know why, they just start to speak louder, even scream. And also, they make it sound like really, really awful. Like, for example, if you take a word like Kartoffelbrei, that's how we Germans say it, Kartoffelbrei. And if an American person or many reactors that I have watched would have said that word, they would have said Kartoffelbrei. You know what I mean? They make it sound harsher and harder than it should have been, like Kartoffelbrei. It's like that's how you would actually say it as a German. So there is a lot of false rumors going around about the German language that it sounds so freaking bad when it actually doesn't. And that's why I'm very, very curious what we're gonna find out in this video. I can see that he's in Berlin and there are many people from many nationalities living in Berlin or are on holidays. So I guess we're gonna have like a view of many different nationalities as well on the German language. It's a perfect place to do this video for him, and I am excited what we're gonna find out. By the way, this is going to be a two-parter because the video is like 20 minutes long, and usually my reactions are about like 10 to 20 minutes, and I will also talk, so we're not gonna just watch like 10 minutes of the video and make a cut. So this video is gonna be like, I don't know, 15 to 20 minutes, probably, maybe more if I talk more. So I'm gonna make this like a 2 or maybe even a 3-parter, depending on how much I have to say about the video and how long it gets. So this is gonna be the first part, and I am really excited to get into this because I know the language and I want to know what people say about it. Okay, now, for some reason, I lost the second cover for these earpieces, and all it did was laying around on my desk all night long, and now the thing is gone. Like, is somebody like... I close my office door at night and nobody enters it. How is that possible? It was there yesterday and now it's gone. Okay, that's unrelated. I'm so sorry, but I'm just like shocked. How I don't know. I don't know. I'm just gonna watch it like that. Now it's not really convenient to wear these anymore, but they work. It's okay. I just have to pay attention so they don't fall off my ear. Let's get into the video.
This is one of my favourite little books. It contains an essay by the American novelist Mark Twain called The Awful German Language, or in this rather ironic German translation of it, Die schreckliche deutsche Sprache.
See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Die schreckliche deutsche Sprache. Do you know how to say that in German? Die schreckliche deutsche Sprache. Like, see? This is exactly what I was talking about. I don't know why they do that, but they always... I think I do know why they do that. We'd have to go back to the 1940s in order to know where that comes from, because the most famous German guy ever was screaming into the microphone and was sounding exactly like that. And that's where that comes from. If you had listened to Germans, like normal everyday Germans, no one would talk like that. It's like a cliche that we can't get rid of because everyone thinks Germans talk like Hitler, and they don't. Now I said it. Let's continue. By the way, I don't mean it in a bad way. I don't want to, like, it was just an example. I don't mean that in a bad way about what Rob has just said. He is not the only one who does that. It's like a general thing. Like everyone outside of Germany does that. Every single person that I have heard and met does that. I don't mean it in a bad way. Like, I don't want to offend Rob here. It was just something that I wanted to point out. I have nothing against this guy. On the contrary, I really like the start of this video and I'm excited where it's gonna go. So let's continue.
Is Mark Twain right? Is German truly awful? Let's find out in another RobWords. I've had a couple of German exams this week. I've now been living here in Berlin long enough to apply for German citizenship, but first I have to prove to the Vaterland that I've at least tried to learn the lingo. Mark Twain also spent time learning German over here under great difficulty and annoyance, as he put it, and appears to have concluded that he wasn't a fan. He reckoned
talking about the sound of the German language is one thing. Talking about the grammar is another. Because learning German as a language, I am so glad that I grew up in this country, because if I had to learn a language, I'd quit. I'd quit. It's so freaking complicated and the grammar is just on another level. It is horrifying. It's the worst. It's the worst. Just one little example. In the English language, you have an article. It's called the. In German, we have der, die, das. One word in English, 3 different words in German. And that's just one tiny bit. It is so freaking complicated. And then you have to know what noun goes with what article, and you have to learn that. And it doesn't even make sense. It's not even conclusive with every single word. There are so many exceptions. It's horrible. It's horrible. That's the truth. So learning the German language and the German grammar is indeed very bad. But the sound of the German language isn't that bad at all.
the gifted person ought to be able to learn English in 30 hours, French in 30 days, and German in 30 years. However, he also reckoned he knew how to fix the German language, which we will discuss at the end. But what did Twain think was so wrong about German as to render it awful? And he meant awful in a bad way, not some antiquated, filling you with awe way. So let's take a look at some of his points and see if German really is awful. Let's start off with criticism number 1. Ludicrously long words. German is famous for its long words, and with good reason. The way in which the language generates terms for new concepts by stitching together other terms to create monstrous mega nouns is well documented. Perhaps
I have a criticism. I don't mean it in a bad way, but again, why do we have to use that font for the German words? It reminds me of the 1940s as well. And also, on top of the German flag, and this font is like 1940s all over again. No. Just use a normal font. Like you did with the English one, just use a normal font one. We don't have to use this, no. Just a tiny criticism there. But yes, we do tend to form longer words because we don't want to invent new ones, it seems like. An example that I really like is, because it's a cute one also, like the word glove. The word glove in English, glove. They invented a new word for that thing. In German, we call it hand shoe because it's like a shoe that goes over your hand. So in Germany, we don't develop new words, we just take words that we already know and push them together, which can be easier, but when it comes to Rindfleischetikettierungsüberwachungsgesetz, at some point it gets a little complicated. So yeah, that's so true. That's freaking true.
mega nouns is well documented. Perhaps you've heard tell of the fabled Donaudampfschifffahrtselektrizitäten Hauptbetriebswerkbau und Beamtengesellschaft,
Wow.
the association for subordinate officials of the main maintenance building of the Danube Steamboat Company, which actually didn't exist. But the Donaudampfschifffahrtsgesellschaft really did. Then there's the notorious
There we go.
Rindfleischetikettierungsaufgabenübertragungsgesetz, which was an actual law in one of the German states governing the labelling of beef that was in force until 2013. And these are just extreme examples of an everyday phenomenon here. Just today, I was having to get my head around the Künstlersozialversicherungsgesetz. It doesn't
That's
matter what
another
it
one.
means. And Mark Twain picks out even more examples of this in his little essay, like Waffenstillstandsunterhandlungen, which refers to ceasefire negotiations, and Generalstaatsverordnetenversammlung, which is a general state assembly. Twain's take is that these things are not words, they are alphabetical processions. He says that any learner encountering one of these monstrosities for the first time cannot crawl under it, or climb over it, or tunnel through it. So he resorts to the dictionary for help, but there is no help there, and he is right. You won't find many of these really stupidly long words in a German dictionary because often they've just been coined in the moment to serve a specific purpose. It's like if I right now describe a never before said because I've just invented it word, I've just invented that massive multi-hyphenated monstrosity of an adjective. So you're not going to find it in a dictionary, are you? And German words basically work like that, but without the hyphens. Twain has a go at portraying what an English newspaper would look like if our language adopted the German approach, and comes up with this. In the day before yesterday, shortly after 11 o'clock night, the in this town standing tavern called the Wagoner was downburnt. And he's really only slightly exaggerating, but what his English example shows us is something that you do need to bear in mind and that he doesn't really mention. And that's that these long German words are not difficult for Germans to read or German speakers. To us, they look like long jumbles of letters, but like day before yesterday, shortly after 11 o'clock, they're easy to follow if you know the language because the building blocks that make them up are very simple. It's just like reading a sentence, really. So I'm not convinced German's long words are quite the problem Mr. Twain claims them to be, but nevertheless, he says he has a solution to them, which we'll get onto later in the video. But first, here's another juicy long German word for you, Datenschutzgrundverordnung. That is the German word for GDPR, the EU's big data.
I gotta say though, most of those words that he had just mentioned are words that you don't use in everyday language. Those are laws. Those are things that you have to do with if you work as a lawyer or if you work in an office or anything like where you have to work with laws. That's when you have to do with words like that. But in everyday German, those words don't really exist. So that's that.
Protection regulation, the thing that means that all websites here in Europe have to ask you if they can collect your data the second you arrive on them. But even despite GDPR and outside of the EU, of course, we are constantly giving up our information when we use the internet. But you can take back control of your data with this video's
NordVPN.
Incogni.
Oh no, Incogni.
Companies called data brokers make their money by harvesting your personal information. Go to incogni.com/RobWords or use the special link in the description of this video and get a 60% discount on Incogni with the coupon code RobWords. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee too, so you may as well give it a go. Okay, let's look at another thing that arguably makes German awful. The dreaded 3 genders. German allocates one of 3 genders to every object. Each animal, vegetable or mineral is either masculine, feminine or neuter. And which one something is affects all the words around it. Straight up, it is a nightmare for the English-speaking learner.
That is so freaking true. That's really true. We have eine, einen. In English, this would be one word, a. Maybe an, if you have an apple. If the next word after the A starts with a vowel, then you just put an N in between so 2 vowels don't exist together. That's a very easy thing to learn. But in German, you don't have just the A and the N. You have eine, einen, and it depends on the word that is at the end of the sentence because it's like ein Hund, eine Karotte, ein Buch. But if you put it in a sentence with another verb, which we do over here with the verb green, it's einen grünen Hund, eine grüne Karotte, ein grünes Buch. See, even explaining something so simple like that is so complicated, and it would take me hours to really explain it to you in the right way so that you get it. This is just, I can just hover over things in this video, otherwise, this would be like a 3-hour video. But yes, he is so right about this. He's so right about this. It's so freaking complicated.
Straight up, it is a nightmare for the English-speaking learner, because if you happen to guess the gender of something wrongly, a load of other elements in your sentence are going to be wrong as well. And a lot of the time, you really are just guessing. As Twain puts it, every noun has a gender, and there is no sense or system in the distribution.
Yes. Also, I'm kind of struggling with this myself with the English language because one example only, the robot. The robot, if you talk about the robot and make sense with the robot, in English, you would say it. The robot, it rolled from one side of a room to the other. But I always use the word he because in the German language, the robot is masculine. It's not a thing in the German language. It's der Roboter, not das Roboter, which would be the thing equivalent. So I am always, when I talk about robots, for example, which happened a lot on Doctor Who, I always refer to them as he the robot, and not it, which I guess you can, it's not really wrong in the English language if you call the robot a he, but I have gotten comments about that. And I was corrected, and I'm like, yeah, but I try to get it right the next time, but it's just like in my brain, a robot is a he. So, and also it doesn't make sense to begin with, like the genders in German. Like another example, the moon. In English, you would refer to the moon as an it. The moon, it shines, and the sun, it shines as well. In German, the moon is masculine and the sun is feminine. Die Sonne, der Mond. So much for the English language. And there is one exception to all those rules because we have one word in German, and that's actually the only one that can use all three of those genders. Der, die, and das. And that's Nutella. Because we have people all over Germany, they call it die Nutella, das Nutella, or der Nutella. And there have been many wars throughout the last, I don't know how many, 20 to 30 years of people fighting over the right article of that word. Wherever you go in Germany, it's different, but you could use any of those three for that one specific word, but that's the only word. Just a fun fact that you maybe didn't know about. Let's continue.
For example, he says, in German, a young lady has no sex, while a turnip has. It's true that the German word for girl is neuter, whereas a turnip is feminine. What's more, though a man is grammatically masculine, his various bits and bobs are an array of all genders. Twain says, in Germany, a man may think he is a man, but when he comes to look into the matter closely, he's bound to have his doubts. Twain is, quite deliberately, I'm sure, conflating grammatical gender and actual gender. It is not unusual for them not to match up. For example, in Old English, this word for a woman was masculine, and this word for one was neuter. Yes, Old English had the same three genders as German has now. But English is the perfect example of how you can get rid of grammatical gender without it causing any problems. The only benefit of having it that I can think of is that you can use the same word for two different objects but still tell the difference. Zum Beispiel, for example, in German, the masculine der Leiter means the leader, whereas the feminine die Leiter means the ladder. Handy, right? Well, not really. I mean, English shows that you can just duplicate words without the added complication of grammatical gender. My solution to German gender would be to just get rid of it. Doesn't that feel progressive?
I mean, the context is important, right? In English, you listen to the whole sentence and you know which word they mean. It's not that you need an article in order to know what word is the word they want to use. So yeah, we don't really need it, but it's typical German that we haven't got rid of it yet because we love to make things even more complicated instead of easier. That's usually how Germany works. Every time we change anything, we just make it more complicated. We overthink everything and we can't reduce stuff. We always have to make it more complicated. It's just a typical German thing.
Our 19th century pal Mark Twain has a different solution, as we'll see later in the video. The next awful aspect of German, to Mark Twain's mind anyway, is its ludicrously long sentences. Marky clearly likes a good newspaper, but in late 19th century Germany, he struggles to find a good newspaper because he has one big complaint. German journalists are obsessed with writing in the longest sentences possible with...
Okay, I agree with what he just said, but this long of a sentence is not usually whatsoever. No, it's not. It's not. No. Also, now I see where he got the font from. He used the typical old German font, which unfortunately nowadays, because you can see it's like it's been around like 1892, but unfortunately nowadays Germans really put it to a certain time period that wasn't that good for Germany, because back then they still used that kind of font. And we don't really, or maybe that's a personal thing, but I don't think it is. Whenever I see that font, I'm thinking like Second World War, even though it was, like you can see it right here, invented earlier than that. This is not a usual German sentence. It's just not. But I give him that. They are longer than other sentences in other languages sometimes. And we also do have like a YouTuber who does that. He's quite an intelligent YouTuber, and he also talks about topics of politics and all that. And he also uses very, very long, complicated sentences.
Der Pumpkin Spice Latte ist leider längst dem Glühwein in den Regalen gewichen und die Tage sind schon wieder kürzer als meine Zündschnur, wenn es darum geht, die Politik unserer Bundesregierung zu bewerten.
And many people, many German people have told him to not do that anymore because it's too complicated nowadays. Because people don't have the attention span from one start of a sentence to get to the end of a sentence and still remember what he said at the start of a sentence. So I guess maybe over time this might change due to the fact that the attention span of the younger generations are getting shorter and shorter. So maybe that problem won't exist anymore in 15 to 20 years. I don't know. It's not good. It's not good.
Subclause after subclause, parenthesis embedded within parenthesis, a point that Mr. Twain makes with this ridiculously long sentence. This isn't a problem limited to Mark Twain's time, though. From my experience, there is still a sense among some journalists here that a sign of a good writer is the ability to construct as long a sentence as possible while successfully tying up the loose ends before the full stop. It's not my cup of tea as a way of writing. Brevity is better, but whatever. But what Twain rightly takes particular objection to is the delayed gratification that very often comes with a lengthy German sentence. German grammar dictates that if you want to use two verbs together, like I want to go, you have to stick the second of those verbs, in that case to go, not straight after the first one, but right at the far end of the sentence. This means that you can be waiting a disconcerting...
There is one video where a YouTuber filmed himself having a conversation in English but using the German grammar. If I find it, I will show you what I mean.
Good morning. How goes it? To me, it goes a good, thank you. And to you? Very good. Have you already breakfasted? Yes, I have a banana eaten. She was very tasty. But have you anywhere my coffee seen? I am to me not sure where I him placed have.
But the video is so freaking cool because he talks exactly like that for like 3 minutes. And it's so funny because as an English person, I have watched other reactors, like American reactors, for example, react to that video. They don't understand anything, even though it's English. But as a German person, you watch that video and you see the German grammar, but you don't understand it because it sounds weird if you're using English words. So neither the Germans nor the English people can understand what is said. So, I want home to my cat to go is exactly how that video sounded when I watched it. And I didn't understand what he was saying because everything was just jumbled up. So it didn't help that I know German in order to understand what he said. Because if I read it, I can understand it. But when you hear it, if you close your eyes and I say, I want home to my cat to go, it's no, no, no. And when you learn English as a German person, you learn to use the right grammar and it doesn't sound easier for me. That's what I want to say, just because I'm German. This sounds just as jumbled to me as it sounds to you.
Of the sentence. This means that you can be waiting a disconcertingly long time to find out what the key action someone is referring to actually is. For example, take the English, I would like to thank the old lady downstairs who often feeds my cat and is always so kind to me. In German, you could very well write that like this. Ich möchte der alten Dame unten, die gelegentlich meine Katzen futtert und immer so nett zu mir ist, danken. But in the German, the thanking doesn't get mentioned until the very end. If I were in fact announcing that I didn't want to thank the dear old lady downstairs who feeds my cats, but to kill her, you'd have to wait until the very end of the sentence to discover my evil intentions. Whereas in English, you'd know by the fifth word and probably have called the police.
Wait, just a second. You can't. I'm sorry, I have to criticize again. I'm German, but you can't just put that word in there. The sentence doesn't make sense anymore if you just put the word in there. It's grammatically not correct anymore. Ich möchte die alte Dame unten, die gelegentlich meine Katzen füttert und immer so nett zu mir ist, töten. So, if you change this word, you have to change this word and also this word for the sentence to still be correct. I'm sorry. But the fact that you would like put the word kill at the end there, that's correct. So what he said isn't wrong. It's just that he should have changed the sentence in order for it to make sense, which shows even more how complicated this freaking language is.
To discover my evil intentions. Whereas in English, you'd know by the fifth word and probably have called the police by the end of the sentence. This, by the way, makes live translating German speeches into English, for example, a nightmare because the translator has to wait to the end of the German sentence to know how to even start the English one. And German grammar does not just dictate that the second verb you want to use goes to the end, but also any extra verbs you want to throw in. And, from an English speaker's perspective anyway, in the reverse order. German is like English in that you're often required to pile verb upon verb if you want to construct a specific tense. So in English, say you've got to cook a big turkey dinner and you need to get the timings right for when to put the potatoes in, when the bird, etc. Well, if someone were to ask you how you were planning to manage your time, you could find yourself saying something like, I am going to have to be boiling the sprouts by the time Grandma arrives. I am going to have to be boiling. Count the verbs in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All in a row. Now imagine 4 of those verbs coming way down at the other end of the sentence and in reverse order.
Yeah, that's so funny. I am the sprouts by the time Grandma arrives, boiling to be to have going. Oh, isn't it fun to learn German? And also, yet again, me as a German, that sounds so wrong. That sounds freaking wrong. Because when I speak English and read English, I know how English should sound, and this is wrong. But it's funny.
Now, you're pretty much looking at German. The verbs that we tend to co-opt to build these complex tenses in English are be, have, and will. And in German, you have the same with their equivalents, sein, haben, and werden, and their various forms as well. And they just sort of end up piling up at the end of the sentence. This is another of Mark Twain's gripes. He talks about how After the verb, merely by way of ornament, as far as I can work out, the writer shovels in haben sind gewesen gehabt haben geworden sein, or words to that effect, and the monument is finished. Now these verbs, and I suspect Mr. Twain well knows it, are not ornamental. However, when you eventually get to some of them, it can sort of feel like you have already made your point and that continuing with them isn't necessary. The person you're talking to already gets what you mean. But don't worry, Mr. Twain has a plan to fix this one too. Stick around to
He
find out.
has?
First, let's look at
Okay.
another.
I'm gonna end the first part here because we're almost like a little bit over the middle. This video is so freaking funny and also really refreshing because I usually don't watch videos about my own language and about my own country without any reactors reacting to it and putting it into their perspective. So this video is a German reacting to an English person who talks about German language. And that is awesome. I enjoy this video so much. Thank you so much for my Patreon who recommended this to me. This is a lot of fun and I can't wait to watch the second part of it. For anybody out there who is not German, have you ever considered learning the German language or have you started? That would be my question for today and I'm very curious. Like, if you did you run into any of those complications and just gave up? Because it's like doesn't seem as if a human being could be able to learn something like that. I'm very curious to find out. The second part will be out there soon. I hope you're gonna have a really nice rest of the day. I'll see you in part 2. Bye!